waiting for Miss Jolie Fisher.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, girl.
Hi.
How are you?
Did it.
We did it. I love these red frames.
You like?
They're so cute.
They belong to my sis, so I wear her with me. Carrie Fisher, I wear her with me.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
God.
You know what I was thinking about that I wanted to say, first of all, because I know we're going to get a little into the weeds with stuff.
Yeah.
Is that, and I feel like I've already gotten like some incredible feedback in terms of your sharing of my information and stuff, is that I wanted to say, as women, as artists, as nerds, as mothers, as goddesses, that we want to wish everybody well. Anybody had loved ones, like we don't want to be tone deaf in this climate that we're in right now, and the craziness and the reach to out to the people in our union. Is we don't want to be putting aside the fact that humans are suffering right now, and we want
Yes.
I want to send love. That I probably
Yes.
I
love that, and I appreciate that, and I also want to say, part of the point of unions, part of the point of collaborative groups of people who work together and who defend each other and who show up for each other and with each other, is that we are meant to fight for each other. And I really do want to acknowledge that in the larger landscape of the world, when we're talking about corporations, corporate profits, it's always hard for the little guy. That's true in every industry. And I mentioned this a couple of days ago on my story. I think there's this big sort of misnomer in our industry that, you know, everybody is a J-Lo. And like, I don't say that to be shady. I'm obsessed with J-Lo. I'm like, J-Lo, I love you. I'm so like, get your money, produce your movies, do your thing. Like, yes. But those are often the kinds of people that have the most visibility. And so there's an assumption that anyone with a SAG card, you know, must be making tens of millions of dollars a year. And I wish we all were. But there's so many folks in our industry who work as day players, who work as background actors, who are out there hustling for like the guest star spot that might eventually get you to be a regular on a TV series. Most people who carry SAG cards have other jobs to pay their bills. This is a big union made up of a lot of hardworking folks, and that also includes the leadership at SAG-AFTRA. And right. I want to say that I'm grateful, as I know you are, for the work that they've done, for the wins that are being made. And that's why I think it's important to talk about where we feel, in our personal opinions, that these deals show up short, especially as we're all information sharing and we see the difference between the deals that exist, even the individual deal at Netflix. We see the difference in the American actors unions versus the Canadian actors unions. We're sharing information, and what we want is to get the best deal possible. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the things that we believe we need to fight harder for. This isn't like some all-out attack of our union. We're here because we care about our union and everyone it represents.
And we are members of the union. And like you said, we're not like movie stars screaming from our mansions. We are journeyman actors who are fighting for the people that don't have a voice. And we create art for a living. We are on those things that everybody's binge watching right now, and our lives have been taken away too. And that you know, you can't refute that. I do appreciate, you know, all the strides that were made, the little things here and there. And it's not about calling out of anybody. It's about, we have so long been told what our value is, and we've laid down so much, and we keep being told like, we'll get them next time. There's another negotiation in 3 years, but every 3 years we say the same things. We're willing to chip away at stuff and undervalue what we have to offer. We're the storytellers. We are the commodity. We are the product.
Yeah.
And we should take part in the benefit of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that what's important is to note that our collaborators, the WGA, which for folks who aren't in the industry who are watching is the Writers Guild of America, the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, they've gone back to the table with the studios multiple times to get their new deals passed. And what I don't love for us, because there really is this thing with actors, right, where people are like, you're lucky to be here. If you don't take this job, somebody else is going to take it. Don't ever ask for anything. You better be nice to everyone, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It puts you in a position where you feel like you're not allowed to speak up for yourself. And this idea that now so many of us are being told that if our union goes back to the table, if we vote no on this and we go back to the drawing board, that somehow our deal is going to get worse. I don't accept that. Because if you take the first offer and you miss the opportunity to counter offer, there's no getting better. And the entire point of saying, I don't accept this, bring me a counter, is how we get somewhere. If our union accepts this, you know, I know it's not the first draft, but it's the first draft that's been brought to a vote. If we just accept it off the bat, we give up things rather than saying to the studios, we appreciate gains in these lists, and what we don't accept is our losses in these, and we expect better. Because for me, it's hard for me to swallow this idea that we're meant to be giving up things in years where studios are making record-breaking profits, you know. And I know that right now, because of the pandemic, everybody's being hit hard, but it's pretty tough for me as an actor to be told that we should consider for our background comrades, for example, that this one new guaranteed background spot over the next 2 years is a big deal when we've lost 36 background spots. I look at that as a net loss of still 35.
So you're a person who obviously has done homework like I have. Mm-hmm. We're not a union. We're actors who are working, who are members of the union. So what I don't appreciate for everyone at large was receiving something that said vote yes, and they didn't tell me what the details were. I got postcard saying vote yes, and then if you go to a Minority Report on dissenting opinion website, you can find out the details of what we're talking about, and you can do your homework, and you can find out for yourself those details like you're talking about. Nobody.
Well, and something that bothers me, to be honest, because you know I do a lot of work in civic engagement in the American political system. I'm very fond of our constitutional right to vote, and something that bothers me is that our union has spent over $125,000 of our dues to run a Vote Yes campaign that says we're getting all this money and we've won protections for harassment on set and all of these things, but they're not telling us what they are. And when, for example, it's something that's a very important issue to me is harassment and treatment on set as a person who's been assaulted and harassed on my sets. I'm not a fan of being told that we've had wins and then holding up, for example, the wins for Canadian performers, which are specific and actually protect actors, and the supposed wins for US performers, which don't put us in any better of a position that we've been in. Yes, would I appreciate 48 hours notice of what is expected of me in an intimate scene? Sure, but there's fine print that says that's if it's practicable. Who says that it's practicable or not? Who makes the determination?
Here's my comeback, is that nobody wants to see me naked on screen anymore. Or maybe they didn't ever, I don't know. But I will fight for the rights of other young men and women coming up in this business. Mm-hmm. And in the time of the era of Me Too and Time's Up, we are fed up. And we were promised, oh God, listen, in the Weinstein of it all, we were promised when we go into this negotiation, we go into this new contract, we'll put precautions and protections and protocols in place, and they will be in writing. And they're not.
And here's what bothers me, because to your point, Jolie, I've been working a long time. I have the privilege now of having an established career because I busted my ass to get it. And I have an agent who can negotiate on my behalf when I sign on to do a film. If there is a love scene in that film, my agent can get as practical, and again, for the viewers, it comes down to things that are so specific. You can see 1/4 of clients' right buttock and this is how specific agents get.
Right.
They're already doing that. It's the younger actors who are less protected, who are at smaller companies. And when we talk about the differences, I'd like to highlight a couple if you don't mind. So in Canada, during an intimate scene, a sex scene, a scene in which someone is expected to be naked, they, in their new contract, essential workers on set have been limited to 5, i.e. the director, the DP, the camera operator, and I don't even know who the other 2 are. I imagine someone who's manning sound and perhaps a person who assists the DP or the camera operator, the dolly grip who's got to move the camera. In the US, there is no limit and no description of who's essential. So there can be 68 people on a set where you are naked as a performer. In Canada, they have complete disclosure of what the scene involves, meaning a storyboard, a script, and a location. So where the scene is going to happen, what they expect from you, how the director envisions it, what the plans are, how it's going to be shot. Is it, you know, God forbid, out in an open field, who knows, or in a bedroom, they have to tell you. In the US, you get sides only in this new contract if practicable. Again, meaning some person can say, well, we didn't have time, or we couldn't do it, or we were doing rewrites and we couldn't let you know. In Canada, you can always have a support person in both your audition and on set. I can tell you from when I was 18, I've been in auditions where they've been like, you know, you have to come in a bikini because in the scene they're going to the beach and we have to see you in it. Bullshit. Like, old creepy dudes wanted to see us get half naked, and I think back on it and it's disgusting. So again, Canadian performers, support person in your audition even, and on set. We have no guarantee of that. In Canada, intimacy coordinators are specifically defined and required to be on set. We don't have that. Yes, we're having conversations about training an independent group of intimacy coordinators, which I think is incredibly important, because these people can't be essentially like arms of HR. Then they're not there for us. They're there for the employer, and things get complicated. There's conflicts of interest. But the fact that they're not required to be on set means that here in the US, any studio, any production can say, no, we're not going to have that. And I think it's not a protection.
There is going to be an argument that there are only 40 people that are intimacy coordinators. So my argument is, let's do training. Let's train them. We are all in the time where there's people that are not working right now. Why don't we go through the training? Why don't we send 100 people through training right now?
Right. And I fully agree with that. And I know that that is a conversation that SAG is having. Again, like, we're not here to like shit all over our comrades. We're here to ask for better. And I appreciate that the conversation's being had. But again, for me, I wonder why, again, when studios are making record-breaking profits, like, for example, the last quarter that I was working on my old show in Chicago, my parent company made $19.7 billion in profit in one quarter. A quarter, not a year, a quarter. And by the way, awesome. That means lots of TV shows and movies can get made. But then please don't tell me that every studio can't contribute $25 million to an independent fund that hires 1,000 intimacy coordinators and pays for their training. It's not impossible, and I don't think it's crazy for us to ask for these kinds of investments. Again, that's an arbitrary number I threw at the wall, but for example's sake. I also want to highlight that in Canada, all performers, including background, actors and background, get 48 hours notice of nudity in scenes, script, activity, and they get the same pay as principals for intimate work. Meaning, if you are a background actor and you are in a scene like, say, one of those like beautiful, fantastical scenes on Westworld where like things were weird and everyone was naked, the background actors are getting paid as much as the actors, and they deserve to be. That's a crazy thing to ask someone to do. And our background gets, quote, best effort of notification. Again, what is the best effort? People can say it wasn't possible. Yes, they can turn down work if they get to set on a day and they're told, well, you're expected to be naked today. They can say, no, I wasn't informed of this. And they'll still get their day rate. But there's the fear of retaliation. There's the fear that they won't get rehired because they were difficult, which I know you understand as women. We've been dealing with this forever. Us advocating for our bodies is always seen as difficult, and it's not appropriate. Now, in Canada, photography not used in the final process, meaning you shoot a love scene. Say the scene is 2 pages long. It's an average of 2 to 2.5 hours a page of shooting. So you shoot that love scene for, say, 5 hours. It's a scene that's going to be on TV or in a movie for, I don't know, 90 seconds, 4 minutes. What happens to the other 4.8 hours of footage? In Canada, it's required to be destroyed because the actors have been naked or in some state of undress. In this new contract, we have no promise of the destruction of film. We don't know where it goes. We don't know who has access to it. In Canada, there is a full definition of a closed set, including no monitors being allowed. Here, we allow monitors. There's no definition of a closed set, which again goes back to we don't have essential workers limited. And the monitor viewers here have to identify themselves to an actor. I can tell you as an actor who's been on a million sets, I never know who's watching the monitor.
Right.
Somebody could say to me, hey, so you know I'm watching the monitor. I don't know who else is walking by. If there's 68 people on set that day, I don't know who's passing. And if you're going to tell me that as a woman in the age of the iPhone, I'm supposed to be comfortable with a bunch of monitors being up where my nude body is displayed and anyone could record it, photograph it, and do anything they want with it, that's not okay. There shouldn't be monitors available to anyone in these scenes besides the director and the DP in a closed space where we know they're looking, they know that we know, and we feel protected. And in Canada, you're also allowed 50% of the approval of a body double and review of the final cut of your scene. We have no guarantee in this contract as US performers. These are things that shouldn't be hard to ask for, as you said, Julie, in the era of Me Too, in the era where we're talking about what is expected of performers. And this idea that we should be so grateful to be in the room and we should just show up and do everything we're told and like, you know, dance like good little choreographed children doesn't feel appropriate to me. We are a collaborative, incredible creative industry when we function at our best. And what I don't understand is why, again, I say this as support for them, the WGA and the DGA have been able to go back to the table over and over and over again and hammer out better deals. Why are we less valuable? Why do we deserve less consideration than our cohorts?
The WGA and DGA didn't have to deal with all this because you don't
exactly.
want director naked.
Nobody's asking the writer to get naked. I mean, unless you're like writing and directing and starring in your own show, which like in case, good for you. But it's not, this doesn't feel right to me. And it's really, it's frustrating to me again in this era of record profits. You know, when we get into things, you and I were getting really frustrated about the healthcare aspect of this. And I do want to correct something. I was talking about the fact yesterday, having gone through some of the language that some of our healthcare protections were going to go away. And there are specifics that feel relevant. And I have some of it here. And it talks about how our national board has the option of achieving an additional 1% into the health plan contribution. But here's where it gets sticky for me, is that it reduces a 3% increase in wages in years 2 and 3 of a show, which have always been standard, by 0.5%. And it adds that 0.5% to the contribution rate to the health or pension plan. Again, if this is my money and you take this and put it in my health plan, this is not an increase. You're taking a percentage from one place and putting it into another. And I don't know why that's okay when we are producing content that is making billions of dollars for our employers. Again, we're collaborators. There are cohorts. There are partners. Yes, it is an honor to do this job. We are so lucky to be able to make art. But if we're making art that's that profitable, why don't we share in it in the way that other portions of our industry do? It just doesn't feel right to me. And so that is one of the examples that feels important to look at in the numbers. And something else that's incredibly important is that we're talking about giving away rights to syndication that exist currently for actors who are on syndicated shows. Now, that may not seem like a big deal, but there's plenty of folks in our industry who retired a long time ago, but their syndicated shows are still on, and that's how they're making enough money to remain housed. And the thing that no one's talking about is once you lose your residuals, you'll lose your health care because you will no longer have SAG income. The connection means that the 35,000 actors having their collective residuals reduced by a total of $70 million could literally overnight lose their health care. None of us will make our insurance minimums. What are the allowances and leniency for any SAG actor who's in the union, who depends on the union for their health care because we don't have universal health care in America? What's going on while we're out of work in this pandemic? If we're not working and we can't make the threshold, we lose our care. How is that something we're not negotiating for in the middle of this pandemic?
what they disguise this is this $150 million gain by taking the $70 million that were in syndicated residuals. So the 35,000 members we're basically throwing them out of the lifeboat. But the argument will be the syndication residuals are going to reduce in number anyway. Like it was 51 shows last year, it'll be less this year. So then just let it go. Let it roll out the way that it was originally negotiated in syndication.
Right. Well, and part of what bothers me there is, and this is something I learned from the great Annie Potts, because growing up, I was very small, but very into grown-up TV, and Designing Women happened to be my favorite show. No surprise there. For anybody who knows, I love a feminist story. And she was explaining to me, and this was, I don't know, 12 years ago we had this conversation, that back then as an actor, your first rerun residual was your episodic fee. And it was from that fee repeat that then your residuals went down every episode. And that's why you see, you know, the famed bars that have residual checks for like 0.04 cents stapled to the ceiling. I got a check for 0.06 cents once. And I was like, guys, you should just bank these until they're at least $5 before you mail them to me. Cause like it costs you 42 cents to send the stupid thing. Anyway, the idea that we've already reduced our residuals so much that they used to be salaries and then fractional percentages in perpetuity until they zeroed out. Now they start at a fractional percentage in perpetuity until they zero out. Why are we supposed to give that away? And to your point, why would we throw the folks in the lifeboat out? If this is a renegotiation, shouldn't the renegotiation, as we are creating, again, as part of the machine making record-breaking profits, shouldn't we be building bigger or more lifeboats? Shouldn't we be pulling in more of our cohorts, more of our SAG-AFTRA members? Shouldn't we be creating a space where more people are more protected? Not, well, we're going to trade the protections of these people for these people. It feels like that terrible like red cup game with a ball at the carnival to me. And I do understand that it's a tough time. And I do understand that multi-billion-dollar conglomerates are hard to fight, which is who the studios are. But these are also the folks we make art with. And if we don't say, we know we deserve better, if we don't hold the line, I feel like we're just going to continue to get walked all over. And we've been very walked over. We've been told we were going to get one thing and we've gotten a fraction of it. We've been told we were going to have record-breaking protections for, you know, sexual harassment on set, and we're getting vague promises. We've been told, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on, and it bothers me that there is this idea that because there's going to be 48 hours notice, you're not going to get your arm twisted, or that, you know, you're not obligated to agree. The pressure is real. You know, as an adult on my show in Chicago, in front of my entire crew one night on a crossover episode, my director was like, no, you're topless for this. And this is years into me leading a show for my network. And I was like, what? And in front of everybody, it turns into an argument between me and a man who's twice my age, who's like, what are you being so sensitive about? Like, tell wardrobe to get you a pair of pasties. It was the most demeaning, insulting way I've ever been spoken for. And you know who protected me? Was my sweet dear co-star from my brother's show, who was like, fuck that guy. He's not going to see anything. I'm twice your size. Watch me cover your whole body. I'm going to ruin his scene. What happens if your male co-star is not that nice? What happens to you if this idea that you are allowed to refuse doesn't actually matter on your set because the specific protections have not been ordered, have not been agreed upon, and haven't been settled?
And there's no penalty for people breaking rules.
No penalty whatsoever. And I guess for me, the thing that I would want for us, and again, I know this is really hard, like no question, for the folks who run things at SAG, for the wonderful conversations I've had about the ways our industry needs to change with Gabrielle and so many other people there who I adore and appreciate, I understand the urgency to get this done, especially because none of us knows when we get to go back to work. But if there's ever been a time to hold the line, it's now, because we can't go back to work.
Right.
We literally can't. Signing this deal doesn't mean we go back to work tomorrow, and saying no to it doesn't mean we strike either. It simply means that we as a cohort of actors say we would like equal protection to other actors who work for the studios that we work for right across the border in Canada. We would like the kinds of protections that our our collaborators who are writers and directors were able to fight for. And we would really like for our contracts to catch up to the modern time, to this time in history.
To that point, I wanted to get to two things that I think will mean a lot to people that are building. So one of them is there was no movement on options and exclusivity. So in the era of us doing streamers, where you're like, dude, I got a Netflix show or Hulu or whatever, where you're doing 10, 8, or maybe sometimes 6 episodes.
Yep.
You are allowed to be, or they are allowed to hold us for the same amount of time that the old school network deals, where you got 13 episodes, you got picked up, they held you
22 episodes.
And I feel like that's not keeping up with the times. We should be able to do 6 episodes here and 6 episodes there. It's keeping people from working.
And I think, again, it's important to highlight the difference between what some folks might see and assume is for everyone. Like, for example, one of my very favorite things that one of the women who I look up to in our industry has done this year, when you look at what Reese Witherspoon did, doing Big Little Lies for HBO, Little Fires Everywhere for Hulu, the shows she's launching and the projects she's doing simultaneously, everyone goes, look how good streaming is for actors. Reese Witherspoon is probably the most valuable actor-producer we have in our industry, who we are all lucky to have as a role model. She can do that because she's producing with her own company. For most actors, if you get a 6-episode Netflix show and they are allowed to say they hold you exclusively, that means you've gone from having a salary, if you were on a network show for 22 episodes, you've gone from having a salary for 10 months, you go to having a salary for 3.5 months of your year. How is that okay? Why are you not then allowed to go and do 2 films in your off time, or work on another show for a Hulu or a CBS or an HBO or whoever else in your off time? This idea that we are owned by our employers and prohibited from working, supporting our families, paying our mortgages, or whatever else needs to happen in our off time doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't make sense. And something I want to highlight too, that you know, you and I talked about just the other day on the phone, is minimums as they pertain to the length of a show. Because there it is. So as things are changing in our industry, which I think is for the better, like, oh my God, the content is amazing. By the way, like, talk about Netflix having some of my favorite shows. Has anybody else on this live seen Dead to Me 4 times through? Because I have. I can't wait for season 3. Like, I don't want this to sound like we're saying that this is harming content. I think content is getting better, but our ability to work has to change as media changes. And it isn't new media. It's here. It's been media. And so when we talk about, you know, the option for streamers to do shows at whatever episodic length they need, that's incredible. You know, a Netflix show can be 37 minutes one episode, and it can be an hour and 4 minutes the next. It's whatever it needs to tell the story, which I think is incredible.
I think also
minimums.
The under 21 and the under 20-minute category, that a show can be produced. They can do those crossboarding. They can do this new format like a Quibi, which who knows whether that's going to be around. But I know an actress who did a part on a Quibi show, 9 episodes, and got at Sony a multi-million-dollar per episode show, and got $3,000 for 9 episodes. I mean, $3,000, we can stretch that a little bit, but when you're talking about on a sister network where somebody's making a full salary, that's... But
also, there's again a misnomer. $3,000 for an actor isn't a $3,000 salary. First of all, for 9 episodes, it's a joke. Second of all, when you pay your agent 10% and your manager 10% and your lawyer 5% and your publicist 5%, there goes 30% of your money. And then you're paying what? Between 30 and 40% in taxes. So the other part, so you're talking they get to keep 30 cents on every dollar that they're making. And they're making less than a 1 episode guest star fee would be on a network. And this feels, to your point, when we're talking about billions of dollars being made at the studios, this doesn't feel like fair treatment of workers. And when we're talking about wages and we're talking about the workarounds, the 20-minute category that you talk about feels really important, because one of the other issues that I see with this contract is there is no protection for performers in shows that are 20 minutes or less. Now, for the audience out there, if you watch a half-hour comedy on TV,
we can't go to our union and say, hey, they're mistreating me or overusing me, or
because it's not a union show. You don't have any protection.
Yeah.
So one of the other issues, you know, again, for some of the folks who might not be in our industry, but who are very, very valued, you know, supporters and champions out there, is that if you watch a half-hour show on TV, that show is actually 22 minutes long, and there's 8 minutes for commercials. So losing protections on 20 minutes or under means that networks could cut show running times by 2 minutes and 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, and suddenly we have no minimums, we have no union protection, and everything goes out the window. Your quote you've worked so hard to establish, your union rights, all of these things are gone. And I don't understand how, in a time where streaming, again, isn't new media, like these platforms have been around for a long time, y'all. When we know that timing is subject to discretion on those platforms, and that on network platforms where commercial ad space is sold, you don't think a network is going to say, cool, we can sell 2 more minutes of ads, which means more money for us, and then we don't have to pay the actors their salaries, so we're gonna quadruple our money. It's like, it's a very weird thing to not protect us against, because again, so many of the people in our union aren't folks who have a regular gig on a show. They're folks who are working amazing guest spots. They're coming in and supporting the shows that you love. They're coming in and delivering those powerhouse performances across from some of your favorite actors. And they're supposed to be able to do those gigs and then work whatever supplemental job it is that they work, freelance or whatever, so they're available when they book an acting job. And the fact that we're going to risk that guarantee, that establishment for those people is a really hard pill for me to swallow. And again, what I don't understand is that these are things we're giving away, and I don't see what we're gaining. When I read you what's happening in Canada as protections on set for sexual scenes and nudity versus what we're actually getting here, I don't understand how we could say that we're winning.
I think across the board, we're not saying that they didn't do their best in negotiating. We're not saying we're chipping away at it slowly. And I think that if we don't say no, we are saying that, you know, that's what we're worth. I think that is true. And that's why, you know, why I've been making noise about it is not to be a shit stirrer, although that's a badge of honor, I think. But I think, why not? We can empower them to go back. We're not taking away their power. We're not being bratty kids and holding our, you know, digging our feet in. We're saying, come on, let's go. Let's do it. We have the time.
And there is real collective power in when you're told this is the best you're going to get, saying, then the answer is no. If all of us as performers say, no, we don't accept this, they have to bring us something better. And it bothers me that there is this conversation happening amongst members of our union where people are saying, well, if we go back to the table, we're going to get less. That's not how negotiating works. And also, don't even suggest it. Don't suggest we would take less. The whole point of this is that we're asking for more protection. We're asking for better healthcare, not move 0.5% here to do 0.5%. What I'm saying is, where's the increase of 0.5%? Where's the increase of 1%? You know, where is the bigger lifeboat for our people? It's our faces that are out there. It's us who leave our families to move to other states and other countries to shoot these shows because we love our jobs. Why are we supposed to continue to be detracted from? And you know, I do want to reiterate, this is obviously a really scary time. We all really want to go back to work. Like, it's been really interesting every once in a while when I talk about what fiscal responsibility in a pandemic could actually look like for our country. I'll have some really snarky person be like, yeah, well, like, you're some rich movie star. And I'm like, hey, so I was about to start a job. I was 4 days away from starting a job. And then I also got sent home.
Right.
My job hasn't started. My job was supposed to happen in March. It was supposed to be done. I'm supposed to be on set shooting my show by now. We haven't even shot the pilot. I don't know when we're ever going to. I would love to go back to work. I would be thrilled. But right now, while we are all stuck at home anyway, I wonder why we don't hold the line and demand better. And again, it's not some diva demand. It's not some insane, complaint. This is about respect. This is about healthcare. This is about profit participation. I know that these numbers look big when we say like there's these $70 million in residuals that are up for disappearing. $70 million sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But we're talking about tens of thousands of people between whom that is divvied up across. We're talking about so many more people than the average person in public viewership can imagine are members of SAG-AFTRA. And we want to protect all of these people.
And why isn't the union telling us all of this? Why are we getting spun by the union? I don't understand. You have to go to some of our websites and our Instagram Live to hear the devil in the details. And that's not right. It's not right.
I agree. I would be much more, I think I would have been less upset yesterday. I was very upset when I took to my Instagram stories. I would have been less upset if there had been a clear spelling out of this is what we're getting, this is what's falling short of, this is what other people are getting. I would feel better if, as these negotiations had been happening, if there had been online buttons on the SAG-AFTRA website that could say, how do you feel about this? Give us feedback, take surveys in real time, take the temperature of your union members. But all we got was, we're working on it. Hey, this is great. We've got these protections. The buzzwords sound great. And then again, when you compare what we're getting to what actors in other locations are getting, the protections are lacking. And I don't understand why we are not going to say, we appreciate how far we've come, very nice try, but no, these are things we still demand. We want to make sure that footage of nude men and women is erased. It doesn't sit in editing rooms. We want to make sure that people can't take photographs of these actors on set in these positions. We want to protect the dignity of our union members. I don't know why we're not fighting harder for that.
Sophia, I think also the reason for us even coming on here and talking about it is because 15% of 160,000 members of SAG-AFTRA vote. 15%. So we need to get this out to the other 85%, 80,000 of which are LA locals.
Yeah.
We're 50% of the union here in Los Angeles. We 50% of all the earnings and 15% of the membership votes.
And it's
details of this.
It's also incredibly important to highlight that the Los Angeles board for SAG voted no on this. The folks who, to your point, have 50% of the regular set experience and set earnings said this doesn't cut it. And acknowledging that this doesn't cut it, again, isn't a critique of how hard the people who are fighting this battle are working. It isn't about that. I actually think it's about, if we think about the size of our little union and the size of these studios they're negotiating with, that us as the union members saying no to this and demanding better signals to the studios that we're paying attention. Right. And it doesn't mean the studios are our adversaries. Look, this is business. We live in a capitalist society. Everybody's trying to reduce costs and increase profits for their own. I just don't agree with that. I actually think there's plenty of money in the industry to go around, and that healthcare should be protected, not only protected, but increased for union members. I think that protections of our bodies should be not but increased, and that we as culture makers should be setting the bar. Why don't we set something in this contract that is so inspiring that other companies and corporations go, damn, Hollywood's not screwing around? Like, hasn't it been time for us to do that? Aren't we all so sick of it? Don't we all not want the women who come after us, who we've fought to hold the door open for in this industry? Don't we not want them to feel subjected to the things that we were subjected to? Isn't that the goal here?
Yeah, and the better we do, the better they all do. I mean, that's the fact, is that we need people to go to dissentingopinion2020.com right now and check out in the fine print, you know, read the fine print. Dissentingopinion2020.com is the minority report. There are lots of testimonials. There are, every detail is listed there. And I've had calls from actors and texts saying, oh my God, holy shit, Jolie, I didn't know any of this. And I went and did my homework. That's what we do. We do our research. We do our homework. We learn. We dive into a character. We put on someone else's skin. Get in there. Get in there right now.
Yes, I fully agree. And you know what? I will say to you guys, Jolie, this is a moment where, you know, we talk so much about our union and the actors and our friends at SAG and how we do want to fight for each other. But I want to express such supreme gratitude to you and everyone on the Dissenting team, because you have pooled resources. You have created this website for us. You have really made it easy to get educated, and you know, maybe this is the millennial in me talking, but it's also like not too long. Like, you just spell out the facts, because sometimes someone says like, go to this website and read this. I'm like, this is 36 friggin' pages. I don't have time to, what are you talking about? Okay, like I'm gonna have to come back to this at 11:30 at night when I've finished all the other work I have to do for the day. And when you guys sent me the resources, it was so simple to look at, clear, it's not redundant. And again, you know, I believe in us. I believe in the engine that we are a part of. And I do think that if we, you know, from the background actors who do like 4 days a year on set because they think it's fun, to the folks who are making 24 episodes of network TV a season, we all matter, and we all deserve to be taken care of, and we all deserve to share in the thing that we make. And if, you know, upwards of $15 billion a quarter is being made at every single studio, that gives me hope, because it means they're going to keep funding experimental, cool content. We're going to get shows like Michaela Cole's, and we're going to get films that change the way women look at themselves in the STEM world. And we're going to get so many opportunities to tell so many stories. But if our stories, if our faces are helping to make those profits, we should participate in them in real ways that take care of people, that make sure that people don't lose their housing, make sure that people don't lose their health care in the middle of a pandemic. You know, 5.4 million Americans have lost their health care since COVID started. I don't want my comrades in this creative industry to fall into that horrible statistical bucket.
You're as smart as you are beautiful.
Well, you are a kind person. I'm sure the people who live with me and and have to listen to me rant about, you know, statistics about everything happening in the world are like, we know you care, oh God.
Yeah.
But I do just think it's important, and again, you know, it's not about me or you, but part of the reason that I share the things that I've experienced in our industry that haven't been great are because I don't want them to happen to other men and women and human beings who want to be performers, who might not feel safe on their set, or like their voice matters, or like there might be retaliation if they speak up. You know, I've been there in the ways I have. I'm sure you've been there. I'm sure so many of the people watching have. I really believe that it's on us to continue to advocate for each other and to advocate for ourselves. And, you know, in recent years, it's funny because when you leave like a network show and then you go and you start doing streaming shows and like making movies, everyone's like, what have you been doing? I'm like, oh my God, I'm working literally nonstop. I'm exhausted, but things are coming that you'll see. And I say that only to say that, you know, pre this pandemic happening, when I was really trying to make choices about what I was going to do and what environments I was going to put myself in, I finally, at my age, 16 years into having a very regular career as a storyteller, I started advocating for myself in terms of parity. It took me 16 years to put my foot down and say, this is my line in the sand. If you think you're going to pay that guy who has less scenes than me on this job more than me, it's just not right. It took me 16 years and an attitude where I was like, fuck it, I could do something else. That's how I feel about this. Like I had to get over it enough to say, this is my hard line, no. And then everything changed for me. I had to advocate for myself in that way. And suddenly the people who I thought were going to be like, well, somebody else will do it, were like, oh, okay. Oh, wow. You did your homework.
Yeah.
What I tell that story only to say, like, I know how scary it can feel. What if I say no to these people and then I lose the opportunity forever? We are a powerful group together. And I genuinely believe that there are wins here for sure, but not enough. And I genuinely am grateful to the folks who've worked on this. And I genuinely believe that if we say, thank you, but this isn't good enough, we're going to get closer to good enough. I don't know that we're ever going to get all the way there. That's compromise. That's corporate world. That's whatever it is. But this doesn't have to be the end all be all for us.
We can make informed decisions, babe.
Do you think there are ways, and I'm curious about this, we haven't talked about this, so forgive me if I'm putting you on the spot, but do you think that there are ways to act as union members, more than just in comment sections and on people's socials? Obviously, I think it's important for us to say no to this and go back to the drawing board. Again, personal opinion, but I've got pages of data sitting here on my computer that have led me to make said opinion. What do you think? What do you think we can do? Do we need to demand that there are folks who run TV departments from agencies who do these contracts all day? Like, should they be in the room fighting for actors? Should they not be in the room fighting for actors? Should it be like what do you think we need to be asking for? I do really look up to your activism in this space and your expertise here, and I wonder what recommendations you would make.
I mean, the first thing that we have to recognize is that voting in terms of even in our country, it's a parallel thing, is that we have in our votes. We have a voice, we have a say, we have to make informed decisions, we have to go and read opinions and by the way, go on the SAG-AFTRA website and read what they're not giving us the full story. So what my thing wasn't just like, I'm not on the board. I did serve on the national board, but I'm not now. I'm just a concerned member reaching out to every actor I know saying, hey guys, have you looked at this? The only thing we can do right now is have a say with our vote. That's the only thing at the moment. If you want to run for an office to be on the board next time, your voice is passionate and informed and articulate and authentic, and they'd love to have you. But the only thing we can do right now is inform ourselves and educate others and say, here's the choices.
I just actually scrolled through my list of notes. I mean, like, this is me all day long, like my computer. I'm so sorry. So I scrolled to the bottom of this and I almost forgot something.
Okay.
We talked about exclusivity, but one of the things that is also problematic is that the contract says that there is a win in terms of being able to work on other shows, but the only win is if it's one episode. So again, if you have I did get a breakdown of this, that if you have a show, a 6-episode show on a streamer, and you get offered a 3-episode arc on a big NBC show, you can't go do it, even though you're not working, even though you're on hiatus for the streamer. They can say no. And this now is actually something that was brought up by one of my film agents, which he's incredibly upset about, is that this is also beginning to apply to film. so that your television show, I literally have it in an email saying streamers have pushed back on indie movies while not shooting shows because a competitive streamer might pick up said indie movie at a festival or once that movie is post-production. You can stop people from working because the movie doesn't have distribution but might end up somewhere else. So it's this kind of stuff that's in the details that is stressful for me. And something else I want to bring up in terms of safety. Obviously, the treatment of actors in terms of sexual harassment is incredibly important to me. But one of the other things that I find really egregious is that we made no gains on transportation to and from set. We're talking about a time where we are trying to figure out how to employ our sibling unions in this ever-changing landscape of entertainment. And if you shoot a show, let's say, for example, in Vancouver, and I'm shooting a TV show there, and because I'm a regular, it's not required for that network, it's not required in this contract, for the show to give me transportation to and from set. I have to transport myself. So I've got to move to another city. I've got to rent an apartment. So I've got to pay my rent or mortgage in LA or wherever I live. I've got to then pay my rent or mortgage in this city I live in, rent or buy a car there, drive myself to and from work. But guest stars get transportation to and from their hotel to set. Recurring characters get transportation to or from their hotel to set. This might not sound like a big deal, but when you go into 3 weeks of night shoots, and you have been up all night and you're shooting in the forest 90 minutes outside the city of Vancouver doing some stunt sequence, for 6 weeks, and then you've got to drive home every night or morning at 6 a.m. for an hour and a half. That is literally life and death. We've seen actors, we've seen crew members die in those situations. And part of what bothers me about this is we're also taking jobs away from our Teamsters. The drivers who have historically been employed to drive actors are, first of all, my favorite people to hang out with. Tony Port, my driver in Chicago, we still text pretty regularly, like maybe once a month, maybe more. We talk all the time. I took him to the World Series, whatever, it's fine. He's my dude. So my mornings and nights with Tony were my favorite. But Tony and Jimmy and all of our drivers had rotational systems. So they knew that if somebody was going to be on set late, they knew who would go in their van somewhere dark and take a nap. Set an alarm, they could sleep for 3 hours, make sure to get the actors home. We had systems for everything. Actors can't nap while they're filming on a set before they have a 90-minute drive home after an all-night shoot. So I don't understand how we're taking jobs away from our Teamsters and also putting our own in quite literal harm's way at the end of days that are sometimes 16 or 18 hours long, and then expecting people to do this.
I think if we put this back into sort of the confines of this conversation of what we're really talking about, there's so many things that we could.
Yeah, I mean the list goes on, but that really stuck out to me as one of the really egregious points.
If you are blessed enough to have a streamer show and to be offered something else or whatever, we understand, by the way, that there are stunt performers, there are background artists, there are singers and dancers and broadcasters for that matter that are all in this union, and we want to be able to speak for the voiceless too, the ones that
100%
that 3 offers this season to do stuff and that are going to be possibly written out of certain things because of COVID, but they're still going to have these protections in place. They're still going to be meeting their minimums and making their insurance. This is we could go on all day. I'm sure I can hear it now, but I think people need to go and look at what we've put up here and get these, because look, this is a show right now.
Yeah.
But I adore you, and I think that I'm so happy to know you, and I'm so happy that you're speaking out the way that you are. I felt like I was in an army of one for a minute there.
Well, I really appreciate your leadership on this. And I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but the real thing that I just keep coming back to is this isn't a critique of our people or of where they've gotten us to. This is simply a real desire for us to put a stake in the ground and say, we deserve to be as well treated as the other arms of our industry. None of us can do this without each other. And And if we're being honest, a rising tide lifts all ships. So if the tides on other verticals of the industry are lifting, ours should as well.
Perfect.
That's
Perfect.
Well, thanks. Thank you so much for this. I want to make sure I push the button before Instagram hangs up on us at the 1 hour mark. I've had that happen before. It's so embarrassing. But yeah, I just really appreciate the clarity, and I just really hope that we can continue to, you know, to push to make sure our people are well treated and well cared for, and that especially, like we referenced earlier, some of those folks in our industry who are retirement age don't wake up and suddenly lose everything they've built their life on. And, you know, so that the young ones who are coming in the doors after us feel like we've really fought tooth and nail to make sure that they are as protected as possible.
And ballots are due on the 22nd. Please, please go and educate yourselves and inform yourselves about what is not in the contract.
Yes, so important. Thank you, Jolie. I really appreciate you.
What a great conversation, honey. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.